Welcome one and all to a Sunday edition here of the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube. Need to address some things in the aftermath of SummerSlam since tomorrow's going to be Raw. I really want to nip this in the butt right away. So some of the aftermath in like people are ranking these matches and just trying to overanalyze stuff. And, you know, I'll start with we'll start with CM Punk here because I mean, it's CM Punk. He is the most divisive wrestler working today. Like it's inarguable. No matter how you feel about CM Punk, he is going to elicit a reaction out of you. I have friends who love CM Punk. I have friends who hate him. That's just the way things are. But the immediate reaction to the match at SummerSlam against Drew McIntyre, which by no means was a perfect move-for-move match. There was a lot of bells and whistles. There's a reason Seth Rollins was there to kind of, enhance the drama. But from a storytelling perspective, there was some excellent stuff going on in this match. Some people may be mad about how the bracelet came into effect. Think about this for a second and the whole narrative that had been told from the beginning of this feud with Drew McIntyre. CM Punk was in Drew McIntyre's head. And it cost Drew multiple championship opportunities. He had the championship for 5 minutes, and Drew could not escape it. Drew had that bracelet, and that came into play here because when at multiple times when CM Punk could have ended the match, he got distracted by the bracelet. And his anger and his pride for his wife and his dog, which are two of the biggest and most important things in his life, let him down, and his anger and he got distracted and got blinded by rage. And basically what had been killing Drew McIntyre for the last 6 months. So it came back to bite CM Punk and cost him a match. So if you got a problem with that, then you don't understand the basic fundamentals of storytelling in wrestling. Like it's called pay attention to television for the last 6 months. I understand that when Vince McMahon was here, storylines did not last this long. This is a long and deeply thought out and intricate storyline that has spanned across multiple months and multiple shows and multiple championship matches. And CM Punk hadn't worked a wrestling match since January. He hadn't worked a one-on-one wrestling match since last August at All In almost a calendar year. And that's the other thing that I need to address. There was a couple of credible people who cover wrestling and actually do this for a living and follow this and are paid to talk about this type of stuff and report about it. And they were saying CM Punk was blown up in the first 3 minutes of this match. And it was a long match and he looked gassed at some point. Well, no shit. The guy's 45 years old. He's going to be 46 in October. The guy has wrestled one one-on-one match in a span of a calendar year. Basically almost a calendar year because the match at All In was late August against Samoa Joe. And then he was fired for Brawl In. And then he has the Royal Rumble match. That's all he's done in the last calendar year. Did you expect him to put on some 5-star classic? The fuck are we talking about here? I think AEW and the perceptions of things, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, the perceptions of, everything needs to be a banger after banger after banger. And I know that's a Sheamus catchphrase. No. Sometimes you don't need to have these blow for blow, perfect matches that are 5 stars on the Richter scale or the Meltzer scale. By the way, Dave Meltzer's lost every ounce of credibility imaginable. But it's just I don't understand why we have to overanalyze everything. It's because that really just shows who you are. And that just shows, okay, you have a certain standard of how things go. And clearly the product that you're watching is not for you. Okay. And I think because CM Punk is in the middle of a lot of this, AEW, WWE tribalistic stuff. It really started. And I think the culprit in all of this is Tony Khan because he's egged this on. And he was able to be on the right side of history for a long time because he was more likable than Vince McMahon. And Tony Khan's a nice guy, but He has conducted himself like a true jackass. He's been a terrible businessman, a terrible problem solver. And then some of the stuff he says in the media, which is going to stem into the next thing that I want to talk about, cage match. I see so many marks and dipshits on the internet talking about, hey, SummerSlam didn't get as high of a cage match rating as the internet was saying. Okay, well, if you're using cage match to determine what the quality of a wrestling show is, I think you need to watch something else and you're not really a professional wrestling fan, okay? Cage match is not an indicator of what's good professional wrestling and what isn't, okay? A lot of this is subjective. A lot of this it's up for debate. But in my opinion, what did you expect from that CM Punk match? Did you expect it to be a well-worked, clinic of a match? You shouldn't have. And if you walked into that match, that's like going to see Transformers and expecting it to be an Oscar movie. Okay? Like, you're not going to walk into an action flick for 2.5 hours and expect some, Oscar-level performance from Shia LaBeouf. You're not expecting that. You're not expecting Megan Fox to win an Oscar. Like, come on. The hell are we talking about? These are two guys, and Drew is a great wrestler. Seth Rollins is a great wrestler, but he was the referee in this match. And CM Punk, as I said, had wrestled one match in the last one-on-one match in the last calendar year. So if you've got a problem with that, then you really need to reevaluate your fandom in wrestling, because you're just a hater as far as I'm concerned. Because it's just and then going back to the cage match stuff, it's just if you're one of these people that's going out of those sites and then just trying to screenshot this type of stuff and say, oh man, AEW, this show, World's End got a better rating than SummerSlam. It's like, okay, you're just using that to just continue your narrative that AEW is better than WWE. I don't think you're right, but okay, whatever. Like I said, a lot of this is just, it's really subjective. It's really up for debate. And I welcome debate between companies, but at a certain point, it becomes way too tribalistic and way too ridiculous. And that's what the aftermath of this SummerSlam, specifically the CM Punk match, because there was obvious, ties to and it's weird because when you think about Cody Rhodes, you're not getting nearly as much heat behind that match because, a lot of the direction of where that match went was with Roman Reigns returning and Solo Sikoa. We know Cody is a fantastic babyface. Even people in AEW admit that he's fantastic and that he's a very likable person. We still don't know what happened, but with CM Punk, it was ugly on the way out, and it's been very public as to the aftermath. CM Punk has held no words back about his time in AEW. He's went on multiple podcasts. He's went on multiple television shows and done multiple interviews saying he thinks that's a poorly run company. He's entitled to his opinion. The problem is, a lot of these people, specifically AEW fans, are just mad that CM Punk talked bad about your fearless leader, Tony Khan, because, in my opinion, and the evidence is there, he is not good at running a wrestling company. He's not a good businessman. It has not worked. You see the rapid decline over the last 2.5, 3 years. And it's ridiculous. What are we doing when you're just going for hyper analysis of okay, we're gonna screenshot something off of Cage Match. Fuck off. Seriously. Okay. Another thing that I want to address here in terms of this, tribalism is really the theme of this show, because like I said, it seems like I said this when Money in the Bank happened. It seems like whenever one of these, specifically a WWE Premium Live event happens, the AEW tribalists and the stands and the morons and the dipshits who are just keyboard warriors and who live on the internet, and that's really the analogy that I want to make is in AEW, the fans are that say this company is so great, they stay on their keyboards. They don't show up. Why do you think they're having trouble selling tickets? I looked at a graphic of the gate for All In last year and what's projected for this year. It's about half. It's still the second biggest gate that AEW's ever done, But it's problematic when you're running the same venue, you're paying for it, and you're going to get about, I'd say about 60, probably 60 to 75% of what you had last year. That's not growth. I mean, a lot of it's expected that you're not going to equal what you did last year, but it's just, and it gets into my next point, which is people are still timing the amount of wrestling on these shows. And I'm like, if that's what you're doing with your life, you really need to find something else better to do. Go outside, go for a walk, go take a swim in your swimming pool, go see a movie, go do something else rather than take out your stopwatch and time. I actually saw that there's a legitimate account on Twitter X that is the amount of wait time in between matches. Whoever runs that account, whatever your name is, you should be embarrassed for yourself, because it's clearly just an engagement farming thing, but also you're tapping into people who really give a shit about that, and those people are a problem with this too. So seeing the in-between portions and just people hyper-analyzing, oh, there was almost as much adverts as there were for the amount of wrestling. First of all, the wrestling was really good last night, so if you got a problem with that, you don't know what you're talking about, and I think you're just a hater. And it's just like, why can't we just watch these wrestling shows and evaluate them for what they are, which is wrestling in the ring? And if you want to just analyze people and analyze these matches and say, that wasn't a good match, you're entitled to your opinion. But if you're going to hyper analyze a show based off of the amount of time it takes to get from one match to the next, that is just a stupid premise to even start. And my argument in this whole thing is, on some level, when it comes to AEW versus WWE, if we're going to go down that route, my problem is Tony Khan does not allow any of his storylines or any of his plot points, which there are few and far between, to breathe on pay-per-views. Case in point, Double or Nothing, Chris Statlander turns on Willow Nightingale. That's supposed to be this big, big moment. Not an ounce of a chance to breathe. We go right to the next match. I forgot what it was. I think it might have been Swerve and Christian. Not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just like, on some level, you've got to let that, heel turn marinate with the crowd, and then, hey, fans can go up, get an adult beverage, take a break, not have to miss anything. And also, hey, adverts actually mean the company is making money, which AEW is not, because they don't have a television deal yet. And they're going to London because Tony Khan is paying to rent out Wembley Stadium. It's just like, come on. And then the last thing I need to address here. There was a couple of idiots who were screenshotting and taking photos of Cleveland Browns Stadium where there was a couple of areas of the stadium that were tarped off, saying, oh man, what an embarrassment for Triple H. They can't sell out a stadium. I was like, guys, do you realize, and I'm not trying to badmouth Cleveland, okay? But yesterday, for those who didn't pay attention or didn't want to watch the whole Jelly Roll Chokeslam segment, there was some entertainment to that. But what was announced in that segment by Miz and R-Truth, the Awesome Truth, 57,000, almost 58,000 people packed Cleveland Browns Stadium to set a single event attendance record for SummerSlam, which, by the way, has been in existence for almost 4 decades. 4 decades this event goes back. It's one of the longest running events in WWE history. And they packed almost 60,000 people into a football stadium in Cleveland, Ohio, because Cleveland won out and it was able to pay WWE a large sum of money to come and host their event and to come and bring their second biggest event of the year to their stadium, their football stadium. And again, that is hard to do, and especially in a town like Cleveland, where, depending on how you feel, I love Cleveland because obviously I have family ties. A lot of people look at Cleveland saying, what's there so great? Like a la Joakim Noah, for you basketball fans who listen on this show and watch on this show. But it's just like, if you're going to just hyper-analyze and go take a screenshot of a stadium, or there's a couple empty seats that were tarped off because based off of the television structure of it. Just think about this for a second. WWE got a ton of money to bring that event to Cleveland, and they were able to break an attendance record and break revenue records, so much so that Triple H said in his press conference, this event, after almost 40 years of existence, is going to go to 2 nights. It happened with WrestleMania. It's going to happen with SummerSlam, at least in 2 years. But Triple H hinted in the post-event press conference that this is probably going to change sooner rather than later, probably in 2025, wherever they host it. So, again, like I said, all in, Tony Khan is paying money to buy off Wembley. London is not paying to bring in AEW. So when WrestleMania does happen in London, which we talked about a couple weeks ago on the show, the government in London, the mayor wants it to happen. They're going to pay WWE to bring their biggest show to London. And the demand is going to be there, and it's going to be out of this world, and it's probably going to blow All In out of the water in terms of attendance records. So, again, I know I'm kind of in a stream of consciousness mode, but I'm really pissed off that a lot of the focus in the immediate aftermath, and again, you know, I pay attention a little bit to the internet, but also I'm also drowned in a little bit of reality, and this was a really good show last night. There was a lot of good wrestling. There was a lot of good storytelling on this show. If you weren't for having multiple heel turns on the same show, okay. If you weren't for Roman Reigns, you know, helping Cody Rhodes and simultaneously screwing Solo Sikoa, those things are a part of, like, you know, arguing about wrestling. But where I kind of draw the line is this tribalistic mindset where you're going to go to Cage Match and say, oh, SummerSlam sucked because this review said this. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Like, if that's what you care about, you really need to reevaluate your priorities as a wrestling fan. And this is, like I said, and it was fostered, and this cancer was festering when Tony Khan started beefing up his company and bringing in every free agent under the sun to just, like, you know, hey, we're going to just try to beat WWE. We're going to try and beat them in the ratings. We're going to try and do this. How did that work out? And now you're declining and declining and declining. And you continuously keep, you know, taking shots at WWE. Focus on your own company. And if you're an AEW fan who just wants to be, you know, try to poke holes in WWE, like I said, if you don't like WWE, then don't fucking watch it. I can't stand when people are just irritating and just, like, you know, looking at attendance and stuff. The reason why WWE fans and people like myself, objective people who, like, try to analyze this and do and talk about it here on Spaces and on YouTube and in podcast form, I'm trying to tell you the truth. And the numbers back it up. AEW has been struggling. The numbers show it in the ratings. The numbers show it in ticket sales, attendance, figures whatsoever. Everything shows that AEW is going in the tank. They'll get a new TV deal. They'll be fine. But like I said, it's just it really, really frustrating to see, especially like when it came to the CM Punk match. It's like, listen, if you don't like him, that's fine. But if you're going to just try and, like, you know, make some level of analysis about, okay, like, he sucks. That match sucked. And it's because Cage Match said so. Or, like, you can hate him, but it's just like, on some level, especially when it comes to AEW tribalistic people, it's like, what are you talking about, man? It's just... I'm going to be really interested to see when it comes to Monday Night Raw, how they move forward with a lot of these stories on Monday night. How Damian Priest moves forward as not being the world champion. How Rhea Ripley moves forward in terms of losing Dom and losing the Women's World Championship. I didn't even think about this. Jey Uso was nowhere on the show. You have to believe that Jey Uso, in some form or fashion, is going to get involved in something with Rhea Ripley. And maybe Sami Zayn gets involved at some capacity there too. I threw out the idea of having some sort of mixed War Games match. I don't know how they get there. It probably won't happen, but it would be something really intriguing to see women get involved with the men. But yeah, it's an exciting time. And I love having conversations with people. But where, like I said, and really the theme of this quick little show is I draw the line when people are just like, just citing bullshit just for the sake of having having an argument with somebody like me. And it gets people like me riled up, which is fine. I like talking. As you guys can tell, I've rambled on for 20 minutes about this, but it's like, guys, be better. Be better. We shouldn't have to do this after every premium live event and have a conversation about like attendance figures and people trying to take shots at that, or talk about online reviews or whatever, or having somebody like a Dave Meltzer come out and say, "Oh, it was just an angle show and it wasn't a great wrestling show." And I was like, "What the hell are you watching?" And again, some of what WWE does is different from AEW because they're not focused on just putting on banger after banger after banger, even though they have a guy that's his catchphrase. Their whole thing is, hey, we're going to have decent matches. Some of them may not be perfect, but they're going to tell really compelling stories and get people to watch. And what do you see and why WWE is in the biggest boom period it's had in decades? It's because they got compelling characters, compelling storylines that weave through television and go into premium live events where you have compelling things that happen across a 3-hour show. And if you want to talk about advertisements and stuff, that's because WWE is making a crap ton of money and they're bringing in more money than they ever have. And that's leading to them, filling stadiums in Cleveland, Ohio, or potentially going to London for a WrestleMania in a couple years, or going to Berlin, a place they've never been, for a premium live event, and they're going to do that at the end of the month. If you want to just like be basing it off of that, it's like haters going to hate. The numbers show it, and everything backs it up in terms of ratings and figures that WWE is doing as well as they ever have. Just because you don't like that as an AEW fan, that's your own prerogative. So I'm here to tell you, respectfully, shut the fuck up. That's it. Thank you. Rant over. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.